Before we start, 3 people vanished from one house in one night. No bodies, no struggle, no trace in over 30 years.
And nothing they left behind explains it. Not one thing.
Absence of an explanation isn't evidence of a specific one, Simone.
3 women, gone. And the only thing broken in that entire house was a porch light. Tell me that's nothing, Eli.
The Springfield Three.
There it is.
June 6th, 1992, Kickapoo High School in Springfield, Missouri holds its graduation. 2 friends, 19-year-old Susie Streeter and 18-year-old Stacy McCall, spend the evening at parties.
They'd originally planned to crash at a friend's place, but it was too crowded. So late that night, they went back to Susie's house instead, the home of her mother, Cheryl Levitt.
Cheryl was a 47-year-old cosmetologist. Around 11:15 that night, she's on the phone with a friend, talking about something completely mundane, painting a chest of drawers.
That's the detail that gets me every time. There's no fear in that call. No hint anything's wrong. Whatever happened after that, fast and without warning any of them.
By morning, all 3 were gone. Cars still in the driveway, purses, keys, personal belongings, all left behind.
And the front porch light was broken. Not burnt out, broken. Before we go further, I want to give Stacy equal weight here, because most retellings center Susie and her mother and let Stacy become the friend who happened to be there.
Stacy's mother, Janice McCall, was the one who first realized something was wrong. Stacy always called to check in. That was routine for her, without exception.
When Janice couldn't reach her, she called around, found out Stacy hadn't stayed where she was supposed to, and by the evening of June 7th, drove to the Streeter house herself, rather than wait.
Which means the actual first response to this disappearance wasn't police. It was a mother who knew her daughter's habits well enough to know something had already gone wrong.
That's worth sitting with. 3 families, and it was Stacy's mother's instinct that got this case moving at all.
Here's what actually matters forensically. There was no sign of a struggle inside that house. No blood, no overturned furniture beyond what's been described. Nothing consistent with a violent confrontation.
Except a shattered porch light and a house where 3 separate people all somehow left without their cars, purses, or shoes.
Which is genuinely strange, I'll grant you. But the absence of a struggle actually cuts against a violent home invasion. It's more consistent with something that happened quickly, possibly with a weapon, possibly with more than one person controlling 3 others.
There was also a message on the answering machine that friends and family later described as deeply unsettling. And here's the part that actually makes me angry every time I read about this case. It was inadvertently erased. Whatever was on it is just gone.
Which means we're building theory around a piece of evidence nobody alive has actually heard in over 30 years. That should make us more careful, not less.
Fair. But even sticking strictly to what's confirmed, 3 adults, 1 house, 0 signs any of them left on their own, and physical belongings that say nobody planned to go anywhere. That's not nothing, Eli. That's the shape of an abduction. Before the searches, there's the people close to Susie worth naming specifically, not just gesturing at. She had 2 former boyfriends who came up in the investigation.
Mike Kovacs first. He'd reportedly been harassing her in the months beforehand, enough that she'd gotten a restraining order against him the previous autumn.
A restraining order is a paper record of someone being afraid of a specific person. That's not a vague family tension. That's documented.
It is. He was looked at. Nothing evidentiary ever tied him to the disappearance specifically.
Being looked at isn't the same as being cleared.
Then there's Dustin Rekla, another ex-boyfriend. And this is one of the stranger footnotes in the whole case. A few months before the disappearance, he and 2 friends broke into a Springfield mausoleum and stole gold fillings out of a skull.
I still can't get over that detail every time I read it.
Police looked at him partly because Susie herself had given a statement about that break-in. He took a polygraph in June 1992, denied any involvement in the women's disappearance, and passed. Later testified before a grand jury, too.
Which clears him of the disappearance. It doesn't erase how strange it is that a man robbing graves for gold teeth was already inside this story before anyone went missing.
Over the following decades, police conducted major searches based on tips, including at least one dig using backhoes, which recovered two things: a trace of blood and a piece of a green vehicle, possibly matching a green van witnesses reported seeing in the area that night.
That van tip was taken seriously enough that police searched thousands of vans across the region, and at one point actually painted a van green themselves and kept it parked outside the police department, hoping it would jog someone's memory.
The blood was sent for testing
and came back inconclusive, not confirmed as belonging to any of the three women.
In 2007, there was also a theory that the bodies were buried under a hospital parking garage. Ground-penetrating radar picked up what looked like three distinct objects.
And police investigated it and ultimately called it not credible enough to warrant tearing up a parking structure, which, for the families, must have been its own kind of agony, a real lead that just stops.
There's also a detail worth correcting on the record, since it gets repeated inaccurately. Susie's older brother was looked at early in the investigation. He had an alibi and was cleared. That's not the same as the family tension some retellings imply.
There. I've heard that told wrong before, too. Now, the suspect who actually matters most in this case, Robert Craig Cox.
A former Army Ranger. In 1988, a Florida jury convicted him of murdering a young woman named Sharon Zellers near Walt Disney World a decade earlier. The state Supreme Court overturned that conviction in 1990, citing insufficient evidence, and released him.
And he came back to Springfield, his hometown, where he was living in June 1992 when the three women vanished.
He also worked at the same car lot as Stacy McCall's father. A direct, documented connection to one of the three victims, not a coincidence of geography.
In 1996, a local reporter interviewed him in prison. He'd been arrested again by then for holding a gun on a child during a robbery in Texas. He told the reporter he knew the women were dead and buried in Springfield.
When asked directly if he'd abducted them, he called the question frivolous and said, obviously no.
That's not a denial, Eli. That's a man enjoying being asked.
It might be. It's also exactly the kind of thing a certain type of person says for attention, with zero actual knowledge behind it. No investigator on this case has ever said they find him credible.
No investigator has ever cleared him either. He was eligible for parole in 2025, and as far as anyone knows, he's never said one true, verifiable word about where those women are. I want to slow down on the porch light specifically, because it gets mentioned constantly and rarely examined.
It was found broken the next morning, glass on the ground beneath the fixture.
Which reads to me like someone deliberately took out the one light that would have let anyone see what was happening on that porch.
Or a bulb overheated and the glass fractured on its own. And the timing is a coincidence people only noticed because they were already looking for meaning in every detail of that house.
Glass on the ground isn't how a bulb dies of natural causes, Eli. That's how glass ends up when something breaks it.
That's fair. I don't have a clean, natural explanation for glass on the ground specifically.
It's a small thing, a $2 porch light. And it might be the single most important physical clue in the entire case, and we'll never know for certain either way.
Worth giving Cheryl her own weight, too, not just Susie's mother. She was a cosmetologist, well-liked by clients, 5 feet tall, and by all accounts the kind of parent whose house was the default place kids ended up crashing.
Which is exactly why they were there that night. Not recklessness, the opposite. It was the safe option. The backup plan that was supposed to be the safe one.
That's the detail that undercuts a lot of the "these girls made a bad decision" framing that circulated early on. They picked the responsible adult's house specifically because the other option was too crowded and less controlled.
And it still wasn't enough. Whatever happened in the one place that should have been safest for all three of them. I want to go back to that answering machine message, because I don't think we can just mention it and move on.
I'd rather be careful here. What's out there is mostly secondhand and inconsistent between retellings.
I know, but friends and family who actually heard it before it was erased described it as strange enough that they felt they needed to report it to police at all. That's not nothing on its own, regardless of the specific content.
Agreed. The existence of that reaction is confirmed. The content isn't. I think that's the honest line to hold.
It's also the cruelest detail in the whole case to me. Whatever answer this family needed most may have already existed, on a physical tape, in their own house, and it's just gone. Not hidden, not withheld, erased by accident, by someone who had no idea what they were destroying.
That part I don't have a counter-argument for.
A few more names before we close, since Cox isn't the only one who's claimed to know something.
Go.
1. Stephen Garrison, a convicted rapist with ties to a motorcycle club, told a reporter in 1995 that police had questioned him as a suspect. He later claimed knowledge of the case specifically to try to get himself released from prison.
Which worked, briefly. And then he committed a violent rape almost immediately after, and went right back in. Not exactly a credible witness.
2. Larry Dwayne Hall, a convicted serial killer who traveled the Midwest attending historical reenactments, reportedly confessed at one point to killing the Springfield Three.
Serial killers confessing to unsolved cases they had nothing to do with is common enough that investigators have a name for it. I wouldn't weight that one heavily at all.
Neither would I, honestly. I include it because it shows how far this case's gravity pulls. Total strangers keep attaching themselves to it, guilty or not.
3. Both Cheryl and Susie were legally declared dead in 1997, 5 years after they vanished. Stacy was declared dead separately.
Which is its own kind of ending, I guess. Not an answer, just paperwork, finally catching up to what everyone already believed. One more thing before the close. Springfield PD still gets tips on this case. Over 30 years later, people still call.
Amateur investigators, true crime communities, and at least one long-running podcast series have kept active pressure on this case in a way most disappearances never get.
Which says something, I think. 3 ordinary women from one ordinary house, and 30-plus years later, strangers are still trying to bring them home.
Strangers can't close a case, though. Only evidence can, and there isn't any.
Strangers are also the only reason this case never went fully quiet. Sometimes, that's what keeps a door open long enough for the right piece of evidence to actually show up.
My case is simple, and it's not satisfying. Over 5,000 tips, decades of searches, and not one piece of physical evidence has ever conclusively pointed anywhere. Sometimes the honest answer is that a case can be genuinely unsolvable with the evidence available. Not that we're missing an obvious culprit.
And my case is that unsolvable undersells what's actually there. A broken porch light, 3 sets of belongings nobody would leave behind voluntarily, a strange and never fully confirmed message, and people with real, documented history close to this family, in the exact window it happened. None of that proves anything in court, but if you asked me what I actually believe happened in that house, I don't think they walked out on their own.
I don't think they did either. I just can't tell you who did it to them.
No, neither can I.